Alright guys, this is going to be a big video, very important video. I'm not sure I've done a whole lot on the Combat Tracker before, so let's get stuck in. First thing you're going to do is, in your rule set, you're going to go and choose Import Content. This Combat Tracker template comes in the install directory that Ruleset Wizard installs to. You can't open it from there because files are not location protected and it requires elevator. So copy that into another location you can find. I put it into a Rulesets folder, so I double click on this and it imports it into a folder called Combat Tracker Template. All my files are in there. I double click on this folder, I rename it CT because that's exactly what it is in Core RPG. So we now have a fully functional Core RPG combat tracker in the Ruleset Wizard. So it doesn't do anything that the Core RPG one doesn't do, but it's all here. Psychedelics has converted it all into the presentation required for the Ruleset Wizard to be able to manipulate in here. So this is where we're going to work. So giving a quick overview of these, what we've got is Combat Tracker Host and Combat Tracker Client are the files that so this is one of those very few windows that show differently for the GM and for the player. So the player gets Combat Tracker Client and the GM gets Combat Tracker Host. And we can see there's quite a bit of extra stuff. So all of these targeting, size, effects, attacks, defense, these are all GM only, and the player gets a much more scaled down view. So the next thing you want to see is client CT entry. This is the view that the player gets. So the player gets to see these items only when they connect to the combat tracker, when they click on an object. So we can see we've got order, we can see whether they're allied or not, we can see the effects button, and then we can see the effects that are in effect. But they can really only see those on their own character or characters that are fully allied to them. You can also see there's a number of controls here that are off the frame and are invisible. So all of these are set to invisible, and they're there so that we can reference, so that controls in here can reference them. When we look at the client, sorry, that's client CT entry. When we look at CT entry, this is the GM's view. So we can see targeting, size, space, effects, attacks, and defense, and we can toggle these. So a lot more information available. What we're wanting to do is change the attacks from, so CT entry, we can see here it's a window list, and the window list is using a class name called CT attacks. So we go to CT attacks, and we can see that CT attacks has a single string U field, and this field has a script running on it. So you can enter in an attack like sword 1d20, comma, I think it's a comma, it could be a semicolon, and that field will then become double clickable, and you can roll from that field. Like the field will highlight when you put your mouse over it. So you can have a couple of fields on here. You can have sword 1d6, and then you can have sword damage, sword attack 1d20, comma, sword damage 1d6, and then each of those would be double clickable. Not really helpful for what we wanted to do, but a lot of RPG systems in the stat block, they will just have that information like claw attack 1d20 plus 3, or claw attack plus 3, and we can edit this NPC role script to interpret that line and put it in. I'd prefer to use the attacks that we've got in our NPCs where we've created attacks as attack items. So when we go back to our NPC and we look at our attacks, we've got a window list here with a class name weapon NPC. Now, I've actually just extended this slightly from when I created it the first time. So when I created it, I just had the damage roll on here. I've put an attack roll on here. All I've done is copy the attack roll from the PC's one. So I've copied this element here. You see it's got a whole stack of scripting stuff on here. I've copied it over to here. I've just moved things up and down or whatever, and I've set this up as we don't want to do all the things that the that the PC attack does. All we really want to do is get the base to hit bonus, and we want to roll 1d20. So what I've done is I renamed the existing function as not yet, so not yet doesn't exist, so nothing's going to trigger this at the moment, but it means I can keep the code in here and I can reference back to it. I've created a new function called on before dice roll, which will run after you double click the roll to activate it, and before the dice is actually rolled. And so what it's going to do is it's going to change the roll to 1d20 plus and base to hit bonus, and I'm getting the base to hit bonus from the node getChild BHB. Right, so nice and simple. And it pulls that information down, and it sends this, it replaces the dice string in here with this one, and then it's still sending it to our attack roll. So it's going to still handle it out there. So what I want to do is, the easiest way here for me to do this is to go back to my combat tracker attacks, and I'm going to delete this string U, so unlock it, delete it. I'm going to make this control here, this window, I'm going to change it from 29 to 39 pixels. Give it a bit more padding. I'm then going to go to my NPCs, and I'm going to grab this attacks window list. I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to attacks. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to position it so it's 2 from the left and none from the top. And I'm going to get rid of the background frame, not necessary. So it's going to go clear. It's too tall. So first I'll just lock it in place so it doesn't get moved from our positioning. And I'm going to make it, we made this window class 39, I'm going to make this one 35 or 34 pixels. I'm going to make it 34 pixels tall. So height 34. But that won't show more than one attack if in that case. So what we need to do is set this so that it can grow. And it's using weapon NPC is fine. I don't need to, possibly can't hurt. This is just, the rest of this has just been copied over directly from the NPC list. I don't have to change anything else here. Alright, just going to make it growable. But I also need to go back to my CT entry and select this frame, this sub-window. It's a sub-window. And I need to set it so that it's activated. So true. It can grow, true, and fast in it, true. Alright, I'm going to set all of those. Sorry, I clicked on it too quick. As true. And then I am going to publish this and we'll see what we get. So push that out. Moment of truth. Plenty of things could go wrong here. So let's remove Gregory, our NPC, and we'll check him out. He's got a Glock and a MacGuffin. Okay, so I'm going to drag this over here, and when I expand the attacks, I can see the Glock and the MacGuffin, and you can see this is bigger than 39 pixels. It's actually growing as this thing has required to. Now we've got a problem. PC attacks, we don't want them showing up here, and the code isn't going to work because the code for here is looking at a source attacks list, and our attacks on our PC sheet are actually looking at our inventory list. So this is no good to us. What we want to do is hide this frame. So how are we going to do that? What we find is that if we click on this window class, there's a stack of code in here, like tons of stuff. Now, one of these is set attacks visible. And what we need to do is tell it that if the entry, that if the actor is a PC, let's hide the attacks. So let's go to create local I'm going to explain this to you in a second. Okay, so we've got local s-class s-record equals link.getValue. So what this is doing is link.getValue is going to return two values to us. And we're going to store the first one as class and the second one as record. And then if the class is equal to car sheet, then v equals false. What we want to do here is we'll put some debug in here as well so you can see what is returned. So s-class s-record. And then we'll also look at it in the database so you get a really good idea of what's actually happening here. So let's send this. Let's go to the combat tracker. Let's expand. When we use this topic attacks one, it'll expand them for all of them. Oh, okay. We've got one popped out here. S car sheet and car sheet ID. Let's expand this. And why are we not getting this one also expanding? Okay, interesting. Done something incorrectly there. Anyway, so this is returning that this actor here is a car sheet. This one is actually an NPC, and this is its car sheet reference. So if I've got a second character in here, got George, and we drag George in over here. When we expand George or try to, we'll see that he's car sheet number 2. So let's go and have a look at the code here. Let's save this and let's go and view the code. So when I say code, what I meant was the DB. So we'll go and minimize everything. What we're looking for is the combat tracker and list. We've got a couple of entries in here. What we're looking for is link. So we've got link, and it's got two records in here. One is class and one is record name. And this one is for our hitman, that's our NPC. Our second entry is link car sheet, and it's got a reference. So up here we've got link is NPC, is the class. Down here our link is car sheet, and our third one, George, wherever he is over here. And his link is also type or class car sheet. So that's what that code is referencing. So when we're getting the link and we're returning two records, the first one is class, second one is record. So that's where we're saving those. So what that means is this looks a lot tidier now. We don't have empty frames being displayed awkwardly because the content doesn't fit in them. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to get some extra information here. Actually, let's just have a quick peek at the client. So the client view hasn't changed at all. Nothing we've done here affects the client view because they don't get to see the PC attacks. And our NPC is invisible, so I've changed him to visible, and he's now on here. But they don't get to see anything else here. All they get to do is see the order so far. But we want to have some extra information on this sheet. So the extra info that we want is the base to hit bonus, because we need that for the attack roll. I think if we try this roll now, it's probably going to... No, it worked. What we want to do is get the base attack. We don't even need it. Okay, so we don't need the base to hit bonus. What we do want on here is the armor class for the GM's benefit. Maybe the base to hit bonus can go on here for GM's benefit. Armor class, we want hit points total, or hit points current, and we want wounds. And we want wounds because wounds is how we show the PCs that they're making an impact without giving away exactly how much health the person has left. After they've killed 3 hitmen, they tend to have an idea that hitmen have, 10 hit points or whatever it is, and they can work it out from that point. But we don't want them to know that Hitman 1 has got 2 hit points left and Hitman 3 has got 10 hit points left. We want them to see that Hitman number 2 has got 8 wounds instead, and that is a little bit more. I don't know. It's a little bit more realistic than showing them how much health they've got left. So we want to put those fields on here. So how are we going to do that? So I guess the first thing we're going to do is we don't need NPC anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to add some extra fields or make some extra room up here. So I think what we're going to do firstly is make this frame a bit wider. Let's add, let's give this an extra 60 pixels. We don't need it. Let's give it an extra 50 pixels. So 5, 7, 3. 50 pixels. Alright, and we're going to move all of these elements here to the right 50 pixels and lock them and make sure that they're all right aligned. Right, 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 right. That's all good. Okay, and we want to shorten this one. So it's actually got the non-ID name. We're going to shorten this one by 40 pixels, 50 pixels. So 223 is going to become 173. And we can see then that the ID is in here as well. Make that 173. Alright. Now, we're going to keep order. We're going to shuffle order back here. Keep it first. I don't want it to be as wide. 47. We're going to make it 28. And I'm going to move it to the left. Okay, and lock it in place there. You can see there's a code on here that sorts by this entry. I'm just going to copy this. Here. I'm going to change its frame to field light. I'm going to call this one, firstly, I don't need it updating, sorting, anything here, but this is going to be my base to hit bonus. So the field is going to be BHB because that's what it is on the character and the NPC sheets. I need it to be anchored right. That's good. I need it to have this advanced template number CT crosslink. That will keep PC stats in sync between it's half of the equation between the character sheet and the combat tracker. That's very, very important. We need a tooltip. So the tooltip for this one is going to be BHB. Alright, let's create, we'll lock it. Let's create another copy. And this one will be field dark. And this one is going to be armor class. Field is AC. Crosslink, that's all good. Alright, let's lock it. Let's copy both of those. Place them there, lock them in place again. And the first one we're going to keep as hit points, HP, and this is HP, our current HP, and that's the same value as it is on the character sheet. And on the NPC sheet, they don't have hit points, they have hit dice. We're going to have to work out that one a little bit later, how to convert a 2-hit dice NPC into some hit points. Leave everything else there, and we go to the last field, which is going to be field dark, yep, and we're going to call this one wounds. Now we're also going to put wounds on the not CT entry, but client CT entry. So we're going to have to also make some room here. We're going to shrink this one by 32 pixels, so that's going to become, what's that, 196? 196. In fact, probably didn't have to be 30 pixels because this should be right aligned. Excellent, but doesn't need to be as wide. I'll make it 28 wide. We're going to shuffle it over. Lock it. Put another one in its place here. This one's wounds. And should be right aligned. And so it's going to be visible to the PCs as well. So let's, okay, we've got a bit of extra code to do. What we need to do now is we need to do the other half of the sync where these fields are staying in sync with the character. Alright, so we click on our CT entry and we're going to find a function called link PC fields. This one here, link PC fields, and we can see that name and sensors are synced. Let's copy those. Okay, now I've got 6 of them. Alright, so the first one is going to be AC, and it's AC on the combat tracker and on the car sheet. Next one's going to be BHB. Third one is going to be HP. And the final one is going to be wounds. What you might notice is that these are all set as type string, and these are actually numbers. So we change those to numbers. Can never remember this next bit. Whether, so HP, wounds, we want this to be, I think, false. It means that we can edit it at either end. I think this field locks it so it doesn't change. You can't edit at the combat tracker end, I think. So we're going to try that, link PC fields. Alright, let's push this and see what we get. Be very surprised if this all works first time. Alright, so we've got here George doesn't have a base to hit bonus. He's got an armor class of 10. He's got no hit points, and he's got no armor class. That's because we just created him as a new nifty character. So let's give him some hit points. So hit points here. So his max hit points, we're going to give him, say, 7 max hit points, and he's got no wounds. So now you can see George has got 7 hit points and no wounds. If we give him 1 wound, now he's got 6 current hit points, and oops, so I've got to rename this. I didn't set a label or tooltip on that one, so we need to fix that. Now hopefully we can't adjust his hit points. I'm trying to scroll, adjust these. Hopefully I can do it for his wounds. So because we want to be able to apply wounds on the combat tracker. So he gets down here and he's unconscious at this point, or he's in a dying state, something like that. And we probably also need to make this so these wounds can't go into negative values. What field was this? Is base to hit bonus. Alright, he hasn't got any class or level, so his base to hit bonus is going to be 0. That's pretty much the same. And we can see that our NPC, Gregory, he has got no wounds. He's also got no hit points, and that's because we have to work out how to create hit points from his hit dice. But his base to hit bonus has come across, and his armor class has come across. So we need to change the tooltip on this. We probably also need to put some labels up here. Fix these labels up. Move name across. Order needs to shrink. So we're going to need to put some labels up here. And probably also on the client one. So on the client one, we can see here that some wounds. All right. Now hopefully the client. Oh, maybe that the client can change these because. Interesting. I think these need to be read only. The client shouldn't be able to add them. They won't be able to. But when the client does damage, it will be using an out-of-band message. Anyway, so a couple of things to tidy up here. Let's go and do those quickly. First one is tooltip. This is wounds. And it's probably the same in here. Tooltip should be wounds. Okay, first bit done. Wounds also should have a minimum value of 0. Do that for both of them. Minimum value 0. Alright, the next thing we wanted to do was in our combat tracker host, we need to make this field like that. We need to change order label. I'm just going to put an O there instead. It doesn't need to be that wide. And let's make this 200. We'll find out in a second how close that is. Let's copy some other labels over. It's locked good. Control C, Control V. I think these should be 3 apart. So the next one is going to be B and BHB label. Lock that one. We'll copy it again. This one is going to be A. We should put tooltips on these as well, right? Armor class 202. That one was, so this one should be plus 30. So 232. 262 is correct. This one, the tooltip should be and the tooltip for order. Alright, so we've got 2 more. Hit points. Looks like I didn't rename this one. AC label. Also looks like I didn't lock it. Lock. Designer locked true. Okay, and lock them all. And last one, we want one for wounds. So let's push that one and see if they line up. Sorry, I was not recording then. I've set name to be anchored just left instead of both, so it stops drifting across the page as you make it wider. I've moved these 5 labels 25 pixels to the left, and then I'm going to just try and find the right spot for these labels. Just guessing for the moment. Name, we're going to make that stay over there, and we'll lock these. We'll give them a name. So this is order label and wounds label. Great. Let's see what we get. So 20 pixels here. And they're right aligned, great. But I need to change this one to init label, I think. Actually, it was label init. Okay. That one should be fine, hopefully. And combat tracker host, we needed to move these fellas all. Alright, last check, and we'll end this video, and we'll do another one shortly. Alright, the combat tracker lines up nicely, and the client one nicely also. Sweet. That's looking really good. So what we're going to, I'll just show you what's next on the agenda. When Gregory attacks, at the moment, it's rolling against a fixed target of 13. What we need to do now is send, if there's any targeting information, if there's a target, send the attacker's armor class and use that. And if there is no target, then just don't call a success or a fail. So that will be in our next video. Awesome. Thanks very much, gentle people. Look forward to